Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name is Stephen Clark and I'm joined by my co-host Nick Ponte. How are you, Nick?
I'm all good, mate. We are excited to introduce another great guest this week.
Absolutely. We've got Daniel from Kove Properties. Both of us follow them on Instagram. They've been quite prolific on social media for the last, 2 years, doing really, really big things. And we dive deep in this interview of how they've kind of built their business during the meeting accidentally by Daniel posting on social media, attracting Jez to having a couple of meetings. They both go on furlough during the first lockdown, and they just grow this business. And what they sourced 140 properties in a couple of years. And
I think it was like 40 in the first year or something, which is phenomenal. But the whole key to it is, and I can see it, they put an absolute phenomenal amount of work into posting on Instagram and social media. So like you'll see these guys post like 3 times a day, and like there's no escaping them. They are in your face and getting the word out, and that's how we came about them, and that's how they're getting their clients as well. So that's the key to their success. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He said himself, it's how they attract investors, people that they work with. They've now got a new program on the go. It's like you invest with them, you get a fixed return of 5%, and you also learn at the same time, which I think is really interesting. It's almost like the educational space is veering away from these big, hundreds of people in a room seminars, to this kind of more personalized thing where just people are physically like in there. So that was interesting.
Absolutely. It's a really good, interesting take on their business as well. I didn't mention his rent-to-rent business, that some of the properties that they were sourcing, they were also just giving their clients the guaranteed rent, and they were doing a rent-to-rent model on it. And they've also then started to buy up their own properties. I think they've got 7 in their portfolio in the last 2 years as well. So a phenomenal growth in such a short period of time. But these guys are taking action. They're putting themselves out there. And they're going for it.
Yeah, it was a great chat with Daniel. Look out for them on Instagram, Kove Properties. It's a pink branding. I quite like the branding colour as well, I've got to say. So, yeah, I'll just cut to the interview with Daniel from Kove Properties.
Welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. Daniel from Kove Properties. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks for joining us.
No, not a problem at all. Thanks for having me on.
And we have Nick Ponte here as always.
How you doing, Daniel? I'm a big admirer of your Instagram account, Kove Properties. Been following you guys for a while, so really keen to hear your story.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's when we both kind of saw you quite a lot as very visual on social media. You and your business partner pumping out the content daily, like good, really, really good.
Prolific. I hope I hope I haven't annoyed you guys for too much posting, but hopefully I've got the right balance. But
that's the way you get our attention, mate. That's the way you get attention. Anyway, take us right back to the start. How the hell did you end up in property?
So how far back do you want to go?
Well, not nappies, not milk and nappies. It's forward a wee bit from there.
I'll be brief, but didn't do well at school. Hung around with the wrong crowd, and I had a bit of chip on my shoulder. I had a bit of trouble when I was a kid, and when I managed to get a break at like a design practice when I was like 15, 16. One of the teachers really looked after us and got me out of trouble, basically. And I got an apprenticeship there. Worked there for 5 years till I was 20. Didn't go to sixth form or anything like that. Went to did an apprenticeship, so did college part-time. Managed to just get in based on my experience and the college qualifications, but pretty much every university but Leeds Met accepted me. So I was like, and I only got in through the interview because I absolutely went for it in the interview, and then did all right there. Did a degree, bachelor's in architecture. Got a 2-1. Then I was like, what next? I obviously wanted to be an architect. That was what my dream was. So I managed to get into Newcastle Uni with an interview. Again, didn't have the grades for it to get in really as it was. And I just thought, I don't know what it was, but I've always been a driven guy, but I took it to the next level and thought, I really want to do well on this course. And I ended up getting the highest grade in the year, which was surprising, but I was the first one in and last one out. So it wasn't anything to do with skill. It was just, I worked a lot harder than everyone else. And I think that's when I kind of got a bit of confidence to go, you know what, I can do what I set out. You know, if I set goals, I can achieve them if I really put my mind to it. And I got a job off the bat of that degree at an architect's practice in Newcastle. Met a girl as well, which obviously meant I was staying in Newcastle. And the company was really good. They did a lot of residential stuff. New builds, they did, you know, developments and stuff. So I was working a lot with developers and property investors as well. But it just wasn't what I thought it was. In terms of you have so much creativity at university. When you get to a job, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I was kind of at the mercy of my boss, which I got on with, but. You know, you got all the crap jobs because you're at the bottom of the pile, aren't you? And I just didn't feel like this was my future, you know. And I was yearning for something else and something bigger than just working for, you know, the 9 to 5. So I started listening to property podcasts actually while I was working, watching YouTube videos, stuff like that. And I already had a base knowledge of property, because obviously that's what I did as a job. Very niche in terms of it was design, building regulations, planning, but I had value. So I thought, and this is a good point for anyone else. You don't necessarily need to have property, education. It could be about mindset, it could be about anything, you know. And I just started going, right, well, I'm going to start posting on social media and just getting myself out there. So I used to get up, I sold my car first thing to save up for a property. And I used to get up in the morning, like 6 o'clock. I'd get the bus to work. I would read a book for about a quarter of an hour. I would try and condense what I'd learned from that and put it into a post. And I would also kind of create a post, just a text on my phone of like what I'd learned that day at work on the way home. And I used to create 2 posts a day. And then I would also, on the walk, I'd do a video of the posts. So I'd create 4 pieces of content without actually taking time out of my day.
And what was your point? What was your purpose in doing that? What was your point? Did you have like, right, if I do this every day, eventually something's going to happen? Like what? Yeah,
well, I just thought if you put yourself out there, at first I thought it could be architectural work. It could be anything, you know. And I saw that, you know, all the podcasts that I listened to, everyone was like, oh, well, you know, I put myself out there and I met someone at a networking event, or I met someone from this, met someone from that. And I thought, you know, there's opportunity, like getting yourself out there as much as possible. Even if you don't know what you want to do, I think there's so much opportunity, because you might meet someone, or you know, that does something that you enjoy, or you might hear about someone, or it just opens your mind to entrepreneurs. And that's what I wanted to be, an entrepreneur. So from there, I got asked to speak at an event, which I was like, crazy. I didn't think I would, about architectural, like permit development, stuff like that, but that was amazing. And I was up on stage with like people who were like making a lot of money.
What year was this, and what sort of age were you, Daniel?
That was 2019, maybe.
Right. And what sort of age would you have been then?
29. Okay. And I was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. And I posted in a group, someone else posted in a group saying, I'm an investor from London. I'm looking to buy a house in and around the northeast. I'm going to be there for a week, just kind of sense checking the area. Be good if someone's from there who could just have a pint with, just to kind of chat about what areas are good, where to avoid, etc., etc. So I saw that, and obviously that was when I was really active in the groups, and he'd seen some of the stuff I've done before, which helped. And I said, look, I'm in the, I live in the area. I'm happy to go through where I would invest and where I wouldn't. We met up in the pub, literally around the corner from my work. So I just left work and met up with him. We chatted for a couple of hours. I told it, literally gave as much value as I could, just on what I knew. And that was it. It was just a chat, really. But we got on really well. And then I think we met up a couple of times after that. And eventually he kind of said, why don't I pay you a fee to find me a property? Because you know the area a lot better than me. You know what you're doing, and you can do the viewings. And that was my business partner for Kove. So it kind of organically just happened. And then we were like, should we try this as a business model? You know, you've got investors in London. I've got the feet on the ground. Why don't we try this out? Then I was put on furlough, which was a perfect opportunity for us to, and I thought, if there's a time to try, it's got to be now. So we both put in, I think, $4,000 into a bank account each. Obviously we were getting paid as well at the time because we were both furloughed for a few months. But we just said, we've got this 3-month deadline, we've got to make X and we've got to make it work. And we did. We started to source deals. We then took on someone who was a viewing agent, and we just built it up from there. Then we started raising finance and we started buying properties. It kind of just slowly built up from there. And now we've got, we did have 12, but we've got rid of a few people just for performance related issues. So we've got 10, there's 10 of us now in the business, 2 years on.
Super. We've grown very, very quickly with members of staff in such a kind of short period of time. Do you know, I love hearing stories like that as well, because we've not had a great deal amount of people that have kind of built a business during furlough, but we spoke about this a lot. It did seem like the perfect storm and the perfect opportunity. You're getting paid to sit at home in a pandemic, but I mean, it's not as easy as that sounds, because I'm assuming finding the properties was still difficult in, you know, the first couple of lockdowns when you're in furlough.
I tell you what, it was a lot easier then than it is now. honestly, we were absolutely killing it at the beginning. The uncertainty. I mean, no one wanted to buy anything, and we were just absolutely cleaning it up. Whereas now it's, you know, there's a queue around the corner, you know. And before you'd have investors queuing up. Now you've got first-time buyers, family members, because the stock's so low. People are even queuing up for investment properties, you know what I mean, like rundown stuff. So was the kind of first part of it was you're going to be the feet on the ground finding the deals, and your business partner was going to be finding the investors in London to buy these deals that you found? That's how it started. That was the intent behind it. But actually, Jez found no investors in London. It was all through social media. So I mean, I love social media. I've got a real passion for it, and we did a personality test, which is really interesting. We do this for all our staff, and not comparing myself to Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs and Wozniak one was a creator and one was a mechanic. So Steve Jobs was the vision, and Wozniak was the delivery to that. And a creator is someone that starts things and doesn't finish them, but they've got good ideas, and they're very passionate and eager to start things. And that was me and Jez. Jez is very analytical, rational. He's very, very good with a spreadsheet. I'm the complete opposite. And he's very organized. I'm the complete opposite. I'm a mess, but I'm very creative. I'm very good with people. And I feel like I've got good ideas. So together we worked. So does Jez. Jez has good ideas as well. But I think we just gelled really well. Like all the things that I don't like to do, he likes to do. So it's literally a win-win. And I did all the social media marketing, the client calls, and then Jez did all the delivery, the organization, the project management. And that's how we start. That's not what we started doing, but after about 6 to 8 months, we started to realize we need to stick to our strengths. So we meandered into that kind of setup, which is still the same setup today.
I think that's interesting because, like, I think this is why we're sitting here today and there's such a shortage of labour. Part of the reason is a lot of people were sitting in furlough and they were thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go and start my own business or like explore this entrepreneurship. Possibly that's why there's like a shortage of labour out there. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, you guys started off deal sourcing, right? And refurbing for other investors. That was the kind of base that you started with. But have you managed to acquire any of your own properties, or has everything been for other investors?
Yeah, so we've just purchased our 7th house. So it's not true. It's an old B&B actually that we're going to convert into like a large family home. And it's all been from raising finance. Yeah.
And a lot of this business that you're talking about as well, and I'm assuming we're going to go into that, is through the power of social media, whether it be to find your investors to take on the deal and work with you, to now you guys raising your own private finance to then go and buy your own and grow your portfolio.
Sorry, say that one more time, buddy. You broke up. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just saying that I'm assuming that the power of social media shows, what's really built your business, from finding the first investors to buy the deals from to now raising private investor finance for you guys to build your own portfolio.
Oh yeah, I mean, so without social media, we would not be where we are today. And it's a multitude of things to it, really. It's just getting yourself out there. Like I remember when I was like 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I don't even want to post on my own personal profile or on Facebook, and I was really like dubious of doing it, even for like raising finance and stuff like that, because you feel like your friends might see it and go, what are you doing, or you I think in life everyone looks for external validation, and I just bit the bullet and did it, and I've never had any negative. I mean, I post prolifically, like more than most people, like 3 times a day on Facebook, 2-3 times a day on Instagram, plus LinkedIn, everywhere else, and never had any, I've only had positive. I've had friends from university, contact us. I've had people's friends from homes, parents come to us, people from university, people from school, and some of these are clients now, and I think we all create mental blockers in our heads, and it stops us from doing things. And I think it's the same thing. Like, actually, a good story. If furlough hadn't happened, I don't know whether I would have left my job. I probably would have waited until I had enough passive income, like most people would. I'm quite risk averse as it goes, and I would still be in that job now. Probably it would have took me 5 years to create the income that I was on then, and it just shows that we all create mental blockers in our heads, and it actually stops us from getting where we need to be. Of course, there's risks involved, but you're young. If you don't take those risks now, you're not going to be able to take them when you're older.
Absolutely. What kind of tips would you give to the listeners that are sitting on the fence about social media or posting or putting their story out there, putting themselves out there? What kind of tips would you give them? I
would say, like, even if you don't have any experience in property, you will still have life experience about something, that's valuable. Find your niche of what, it might be in your job, it might be in your job, you might be able to give some sort of value about business. Like if you're in a job and it's something to do with a business that might inspire property investors, you could talk about that. Or organization. I would love to see posts about organization, because I'm a nightmare, without Jez, I would be, it would be a literal nightmare. But, anything that you've got that you feel that could be valuable to someone else, get yourself out there, and start to put some effort in. I think it's such a small amount of time that has such big dividends in the long term. Like I said, I was just posting. I was reading a book about property and then just posting about what I'd learned, and then I was learning, like what I'd learned in the day of work. I would then post about it on the evening. It wasn't going out my way to, like, I wasn't spending 2 hours a night going, right, what am I going to come up with? I was just regurgitating stuff and learning things and just openly putting it out there. And I got asked to speak in an event after about a year of doing that. It's mental. And that led to many other things. So yeah, I just think just get yourself out there and just break those barriers as soon as possible.
Once you get past that stage, is there a system to it? Would you say that there's an optimal amount to post, whether it be once a day, 3 times a week? What would you say would be the kind of optimal time, or just posting?
Yeah, I think whatever you're comfortable with, but I would try once a day at least, once a day. But it's not just like business. Like we've got really good contractors from social media, because we've built a brand and people want to be associated with that brand. And then, if you've got a following and you say, oh, I'm looking for a contractor, I'm looking for a painter, or I'm looking for a surveyor, or I'm looking for a broker, people will recommend, because they get so much value from you. They want to give value back. So it's on so multifaceted, you know what I mean? It's not just networking, it's not just business, it's not just get benefits. You get all sorts of, you know, a myriad of different benefits. It's not just one thing. And people underestimate the power of social media, I think.
So you and Jez got together. So you started like properly going at it, what, 2020?
Yeah.
Right. So up to date, like how many deals would you say, like how many properties would you say you've managed to kind of source for investors?
We did about 40 in the first year, I think. Or the first, yeah. We've been going about a year and a half. Yeah, we've been going 2.5 years now. So I think the first year we did 40 or 50. And then the past 18 months, we've done just over 100.
And were you getting these to, like, what was the kind of the criteria? Was it all different? Was it BRRR that people were wanting, or was it just standard buy-to-lets, or what were these?
Yeah, so this is interesting. It used to be a lot of BRRR because the deals were there. But what we're finding is the money left in is in when you refinance, that's pretty much the leftover money that you've got. That's basically what the property costs you. We were getting 10 grand left in deals easily, and we'd be able to find 5 of those a month very easily.
Which I think is good. Like, I would take that.
Yeah. Well, you won't get them today. That's the thing. So that's now changed to about 20k left in because you've got people offering higher. You know, you've got material increases, and contractors are more expensive now. Yeah, there's lack of stock, and we record all of our, like, every single deal that we offer on. We record it in terms of data, and I think 30% or 40% in year one were 5 grand under asking and below. So between 5 and 15 grand under asking. Most of them were 10 grand under asking. I think we've had like 2% this year, you know, in terms of, like, you just aren't going to get a deal that below asking, because vendors just know that we're in a booming market. They know what they're going to get. I mean, we've had vendors go, oh, the market's gone up drastically in the past 3 months. I want an extra 10 grand, like mid-conveyancing. It's crazy.
What sort of fee would you take then for something like that you could negotiate a little bit of a discount off of?
So we charge 3,300, and that's finding the property, viewing it. We view quite a lot. Like I said, like a lot falls out of bed. You know, maybe I think 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 before you can get a good secure one that you haven't been gazumped on, etc. And we'll do the analysis. We've got Rightmove Plus, which has basically has data within the last 6 months, and a valuer will only go from the last 6 months. They'll go 12 months, but they'll look at the 6-month radius first, you know, up to a mile in the northeast. And we've got that data. So we provide rental comps, sold comps, refurb estimate, and we do that for each strategy, whichever strategy you prefer. Yeah.
And with the refurb, then you would offer that as part of the service as well. So you would charge that sourcing fee. Are most of your investors, like, you kind of want a hands off? They just want you to deal with everything. Like, where are these investors coming from? They come from down in England, south of England, like London, or? Yeah,
so mostly London, and yeah, so we used to do a lot more BRRs, and we do charge project management fee on top of that if we're doing the refurb of the delivery, because there's quite a lot involved in that. But to be honest, now, this is the funny thing, we sell a lot more turnkeys now than we do BRRs. And I think the reason for that is it's quite interesting. I spoke to an investor. He said, instead of spending 100 grand on a BRR, I might as well just buy 4 properties, turnkey buy-to-lets, for 100 grand. Because he's like, the market's drastically going up. You'll get 4 times the capital appreciation. You've got no risk of refurb, material increases, you know, like contracts are a nightmare at the moment. Valuation, you're going to get an instant valuation on the property. So you're not going to get downvalued. And 18 to 20 grand left in, you buy it on a mortgage, it's going to cost you 25. Do you know what I mean? So
we've been talking a lot about that lately as well. That's my mindset at the moment. And to be honest with you, I just can't be arsed at dealing with builders for refurbs at the moment.
And for the extra few grand, it's probably not worth the risk. And it used to be because the margins were there, but the margins aren't there anymore. So I guess that's why we're selling more turnkeys. We do get the odd good BRR, but they're just not as readily available as they used to be. And I suppose you've got to adapt to a changing market, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you guys keep the BRR ones for yourself more than pass them on to investors and try and deal with the more turnkey investors?
We don't buy that many, to be fair. I mean, we've 7 in 2 years, and but we buy the odd one. But I think bigger stuff, like we're doing a flip at the moment that's like 300 grand all in, whereas a lot of our investors are like sub 100 grand. Do you know what I mean? So
having properties in 2 years is good, mate. It's taken me 15 years to get 11. So
thanks, man. Thanks. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've been focusing more on the business, to be fair, but yeah.
And that business sounds like, it sounds like you've got it, you've got 10 in the team now, you're charging, 3 grand, whatever, a pot for the deal. And then you've got other avenues of income, sources of income off of that as well. Yeah.
Well, we've got a rent-to-rent business as well now, which we're scaling. So what we do is we offer, because a lot of our investors just want no risk, no hassle. And obviously with a contractor, that's out of your control. With a valuation, that's out of your control. So with a turnkey, you get a survey before you even complete on it. So anything that's not cropped up in a viewing, you'll know about it, and you can either renegotiate on the purchase price or pull out. The valuation, you get that instantly as well before you actually put the money down. And then we offer a guaranteed rent. So if it's in an area that works for us for SA, we'll guarantee the rent, meaning no voids, we'll cover maintenance, and there's no management fee. So it's like 30% better off for them, and there's zero risk. So it's
a real serviced accommodation front, not the HMO, right?
Well, so this is a sourced product, but then we'll guarantee their rent, but then obviously we're managing it, and that's the rent to rent. So it's just an extension of our products, but then we've managed to build another business off it. So yeah, I think we've got 6-7 of those now. But it's really good because with the sourcing, you get to some months you'll do really well, and other months you won't. But if you have like we have a guy who's really, really good, Carl, who's sources all our deals. I don't actually source the deals anymore. He's in the team, and he's kind of just nailing it with clients. If he left, which I hope he doesn't, but if he left, I would probably have to jump in. I wouldn't have the relationships with the clients. We might have a dip, in sales, and we might lose 20 grand over that couple of months, So it's good to have that base income and that residual income in case the market changes, or, they might have an SA ban, or they might have an HMO ban, or whatever it is, So it's good to have residual income as a buffer, and that is a side hustle, I suppose, to help with that, because our property income's not enough to sustain us. But we want to get to that breathing level where the actual residual income covers all expenses. That's the kind of goal. So that's just another little business that we do.
Yeah, and then the sourcing, I'm assuming, is building up the pot for you guys to then raise the capital to invest in your own portfolio as well.
Yeah. So we've got two programs for that. So we just do like the passive kind of 10% return on your money, but we also do a loan and learn, which is quite cool. And I've got a really good example of why learning from others is so important. Not just learn. You could just work for someone for free. And actually, anyone starting off in property, I would suggest shadow people as much as possible. And posting groups is going to get you noticed, and you might gain some credibility and then go work for someone for free, or you might join a learn or whatever it is. It gives you that base knowledge. And what I mean by that is, I did some mentoring, and we've probably lost about 60 grand over the past 2 years in mistakes. Sometimes with clients that we've had to pay for because we all would always pay for it because it's our fault, and stuff on our own portfolio. And those mistakes, like when you do anything at scale and you're doing multiple things, you're going to make mistakes. And a lot of people don't mention these mistakes, but I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because as long as you learn from it, you grow from it. It's a valuable lesson. And we had a client that is a client now, but they weren't at the time they messaged us. They basically bought a house. They're just starting off in investing. They've been on a mentoring course, and they just wanted to buy a turnkey buy-to-let. So you would think, well, you wouldn't need any training for that. You just view a property and you have a look around. It's in good condition, so what's the risk? They bought a property that had an outbuilding, that had a brand new kitchen in it. And when they didn't get a survey, which was first mistake. They then completed, and the builder went round and said, that outbuilding single skin, that's just block work. That's not an actual proper wall makeup. Behind the kitchen units was full of damp. And usually you have, your block, your cavity and your brick. And that it'll have a barrier for the moisture, so the moisture can't get through that wall. Because they wanted to use it as a buy-to-let, because it wasn't standard wall makeup, that breached building regulations, and it wouldn't have been allowed to be let out because it's a habitable space. It's too cold for anyone to be living there. So what that meant, and this was, in summer, so it was a warm day. They wouldn't have known any other way from that. So what the costs were to add another skin on internally, but because of that, they had to take the kitchen out. So the brand new kitchen had to go. It ended up costing them $8,000 additional costs than they actually anticipated. And that was meant to be a turnkey buy-to-let that was ready to go. And part of our process, we have a checklist, we have a vigorous process. We measure door frames and window frames to make sure that they're not like the old construction, because in the 70s and 80s, it's terrible years for construction in terms of building. We make sure that the thicknesses are right, and we make sure that everything is as building regulations. And that's just one example of, if you was on site with us, you would see that and go, why are you doing that? And we would explain it. A mentor is not going to teach you that. And that's the kind of thing that we do on the Learn and Learn. They spend days with us. They go on viewings. They go to meet our project managers, and they just get injected into our business and just suck up everything that we do. And they also get all our resources. So I think it's just a really good insight into that. You can make a lot of money in property, but you can also lose a lot of money. And it's really about education and having that knowledge. And yeah, I think it's a good tool to learn.
Like a great program, because like you say, mentoring on an education course, you can get the theory, you can get from someone else's experience, but there's so many details in property that you just can't cover in a 3-4 day weeks course. Online learning, whatever method you're going to go and do the learning from, you're never going to be able to get everything. And shadowing someone and mentoring, shadowing someone like that, basically an apprenticeship and in property investing's ideal. It's just, you're so unique.
Yeah. I'm interested in this Learn and Learn because I've seen it pop up a few times. So I think Tej talks, I think we had him on the show as well. I think he does that as well, right? So the only issue that I find with that is that, well, I don't do it myself, obviously, but what I was thinking was these people that obviously have, they got to have a bit of money to invest, first of all, and then you give them the fixed return. Then they're involved. Are they involved in the process of getting the works done? So because where do you kind of draw the line? Because I'm thinking to myself, when it's me in charge and it's my money, I make the decisions. I decide what kitchen I want to put in. I decide what color I want to paint the walls. Do these people then start becoming, really involved with the day-to-day decisions? How do you?
Yeah, it's not so much. It doesn't go towards a project. So it's just a loan. You're helping us by loaning us some money so that we can do some projects.
Right. Okay.
We're giving you interest and we're teaching you. So we'll give you 5% interest and we'll teach you. And normal pass is 10%, but that 5% is covering some of our time spent to actually teach you and shadow, you to shadow us.
Do they need to pay extra for the education part as well?
No, that's just included. So we've had some that go, well, I want to learn about rent to rent. I want to learn about viewings, refurbs. I want to learn about valuations.
Right.
And we just inject them into whatever side of the business they want.
Okay, so it's not like their loan is going to buy a specific property and then they're going out and doing site visits on that, right? Okay, cool. That sounds good, man.
They can be involved in any part of the business and any strategy as well, and they can swap. So they can start off with BRRR and then they can look at SA and learn how to analyze an SA deal. And we can give you all our deal sheets, etc.
And they take as much as they can until they you've released their money and pay their money back, or is it a certain amount that you go into?
It's a 12-month contract, and then they get the money back plus the interest, and then some. Hopefully, some will go again if they want to learn about other things. But a year's a long time. You'll learn a lot in a year.
Yeah.
You obviously have to structure that to a certain point where people are not just constantly pounding you for questions and stuff like that. So you obviously just do you have a calendar where
it's funny, because you have 24-hour access to us via WhatsApp, and to be honest, people only ask questions when they really need it. They don't take the mic really, and it's very easy for me because I'm always out and about and doing things. It's very easy for me to just send a voice note. It doesn't require much time for me if they're like, oh, how do I analyze a deal like an RICS surveyor? What's the kind of metrics? Or can you have a look at this deal? It'll take me a minute. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a lot of time out my day, really, to be honest. Thought it would be. But we're sticking with that kind of rule because people only ask questions when they really need it, which is good. And we also have loads of videos because obviously training staff is such a big thing. We've got videos on everything, literally everything. So they get access to all of that. There's probably about 50 hours worth of recordings that we've done.
What happens if somebody invests say 50 grand with you and then another person invests 10 grand with you? Do you have to give the guy that invests 50 grand more learning than the guy
it's minimum 25.
Right.
But obviously everyone gets the same. It's just you're going to get more money back.
True.
You know what I mean? Some people invest 50 grand and then they'll maybe do a project alongside the loan and learn, so they get to buffer. It just
they get to tap into your network as well. Eventually, when they decide that they're ready to go themselves, would they be able to? Would you recommend tradesmen, accountants, solicitors, that sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, we've got a panel that we use that we recommend. We've also got a WhatsApp group with about 150 people in now, which is a networking. It's the Kove Property Meet. It's a networking event, which now we're not running at the moment. But we've still got the WhatsApp. So, but we are doing meetups. So a few times a year we'll have refurb day visits. We'll do some kind of events and stuff like that. So it's a chance for everyone to meet up as well. So we've got a little community, and it's just injecting them into that as well, which is a nice thing.
Like it. Sounds good. I'm sure I listened to a podcast where you said at one point you were managing 19 different refurb projects. Or was it 17 or something like that?
Yeah, I think we're at 15 at the moment.
How do you manage all that?
We've got two full-time. Well, we've got full-time project managers,
right?
Dealing with the day-to-day. It's very time intensive, and then Jez is overseeing that and making sure everything's been done and delivered.
That's Jez's side of the business, is it? He does all the kind of all the builders, isn't it?
The hardest side. It's definitely the hardest side of the business, because a lot of it's out of your control, right? So contractors are out of your control, and we've had nothing but trouble with contractors.
Tell us some disasters. Have you got any good stories that you can share with us?
I've got loads of good stories. We had one contractor that we had to lock out of the property, and he smashed all the windows in. That was one. Because he wasn't he wasn't hitting his deliverables, and we stage it. You get paid for what's being done, and he wasn't getting stuff done, so we got someone else in, changed the locks, so he smashed all the windows in. We had another one that put in fake damp-proof course. He said it was going to cost $5 grand to put in a damp-proof course, and he said, yeah, we've put it in, and then I looked at it and I was like, that doesn't look right. And it was like strip at the bottom, but he hadn't put the actual, he just put a strip at the bottom to make it look like it had been done, and just pocketed the 5K. And I got someone else in to chip a bit of plaster off to check, and it hadn't been done. So that went out of our pocket as well. And this is what I'm saying, you know, you've just got to be really careful. Property can be lucrative, but it can also cost you a lot of money. We had one contractor that had a stroke, and his second in command had access to his bank accounts, and he just robbed him and robbed his vans. That cost us up to now about 12K in costs. You know, we could have just fleeced the clients, but obviously that's not part of our values, and part of, you know, we're in it for the long game.
You presumably had to take some sort of hit there, because
we paid for all of that. That was all of our money.
Right.
You know, that was just straight out of our pockets, because it's not the client's fault. We've offered a service, and then, you know, we've been let down by a contractor. That's on us, essentially, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
so,
that's definitely hard. But I mean, it's similar to myself. I used to kind of offer that full project management type style thing. I'm just finding it harder and harder now, because number one, it's very difficult to get trade. Sounds like you've got the kind of volume there, so that now you can kind of keep the team constantly busy.
Yeah. We've kissed a few frogs, but I think we've got a good team now. It's hard to get stuff done when it said it's been done sometimes, just because of, you know, COVID, and the sheer amount of volume sometimes can get a bit too much for them. But they're a good set of lads. So, but yeah, it's definitely been a tough couple of years in terms of like getting good contractors in. It's been a nightmare, to be fair. But I think, based on my experience with other people, it's like that everywhere. Getting good contractors is like gold dust, isn't it?
People have got too much money pent up in their pockets through the last couple of years that they can afford to be spending and paying ridiculous money to get stuff done in their house, that we're not going to be able to compete with, are we?
Definitely.
We're definitely bottom of the order, bottom of the list. But
like I said, the many contractors I deal with, that shit changes when the market changes and there's not as much, you know, money lucrative in the economy and getting passed around. Then they have to come running back to the guys that give them volume and regular work, and then start, you know, come back.
There's things you can put in place. Like, obviously, we've learned a lot of we now vet contractors in such a way that we know what we're getting into. You know, we speak to three previous clients, we visit their works, we do financial checks on them. There's a lot of other stuff we do, and that'll mitigate your risk even more as well. And that's the kind of thing that we teach on the Learn and Learn. It's just covering your back as much as possible, and stage payments as well, paying for what's been done. A lot of contractors ask for 50% up front. Never do that. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, you're too exposed there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found this, Daniel, but like when I first started out, it was like, because I was a landlord developer myself, you know, in property, when I started doing it for other people, like I was constantly trying to get the best price and getting multiple quotes and all the rest of it. And then you would go maybe with like a cheaper option, and then inevitably you would get let down, or the quality would suffer and stuff like that. With the trades, I think there's definitely an argument to say, you know, obviously it's like anything, you get what you pay for. But I really advise people now, you know, not to go with the cheapest quote. I don't know if that's something that you've found in the past.
Yeah, they say you pay cheap, you pay twice. But I think it's down to your due diligence. You can get an expensive crap builder, just like you can get a cheap crap builder. It's about you putting in strict measures in place and penalties. If they don't deliver, you have a penalty in place. You need to keep them on you know, and it's all to do with process. That's what I've found, you know, process in terms of due diligence on the back end before you even get them in. Then once they're in, you need to make sure that you're providing them with a clear scope of works and a clear set of deliverables, and penalties if they don't deliver on that as well. And a really ironclad contract that ties them into it so they can't get out of it in any way. I know that a lot of people say, oh, that's really hard to do, but we're doing it with our contractors, and I wouldn't suggest doing anything else, to be honest, because you need to protect yourselves. The biggest, I think, cost in property is contractors, and the biggest risk, actually.
Definitely, but I say it's definitely the biggest headache, stress, pain point. I would far rather deal with, you know, a dodgy tenant or a non-paying tenant than a builder, like you say, because there's just so much that could go wrong with, like, you know, your windows getting smashed up, and I don't know, just find them, like, this is terrible to tar them all with the same brush, but just find them very, like, a lot of them will just take the huff dead easy as well. So they'll just throw the toys out the pram. They can't handle a little bit of constructive criticism. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, I find that as well. And that's why, that's why putting in the that kind of process map is so important, I think. You know, just to cover yourself.
Let's just say there'll be some of our listeners are probably builders and you know, trades as well. Listen, there's some great people out there as well. Don't get us wrong. So, did I hear you say that you had started up doing the management, the letting agency as well, or was that?
No, so that's an interesting story. So when I said we were doing, you know, 5 or 6 deals a month and they were all BRRs, predominantly what we were sourcing was buy-to-lets. Whereas when the market changed, we started to dip in numbers. So we were like, what else can we do to help increase our kind of KPIs? And we were started to do more SAs, more HMOs, social housing. We do some development stuff as well. So we actually the buy-to-lets kind of was maybe 50% of what we were doing, because it was all buy-to-lets. Now we do turnkey buy-to-lets, but we don't do that many BRRs. So what happened was the letting agency was meant to break even at year 1, and that suddenly became year 2 or 2.5. And it was a huge cost coming out because we had a member of staff there, and we were like, can we take this loss for 2.5 years? And we didn't really want to scale the letting agency. It was just a natural extension of what we did. So we were like, right, we'll change the letting agency to guaranteed rent service. And the source deals that we do that are buy-to-lets on guaranteed rent, we'll put into that. So we're just doing that at the moment. And it's hitting our kind of residual income target. It's doubling it basically. So we're already hitting targets there. And without the stress, because the letting agency is actually a lot more work, to be honest.
That's really smart. So, like, the people who are you're sourcing these deals from, but you're still effectively managing the property in house, right? But you're offering them guaranteed rent.
As an SA, yeah.
Oh, the SA, right? Okay, got you.
Guaranteeing the rent. They're not getting any voids. We're covering all maintenance in terms of the guest, and there's no management fees, there's no tenant fine fees, there's no bad tenants. You know, there's no trashing of the property. It's us. We're your tenants. So,
but if you're sourcing 40 properties a year, you can't be all putting them on a, SA model. I mean, surely you're going to saturate the market yourselves pretty quick, you know?
Not everything that we source is buy-to-lets in city centres. You know, it's probably.
Oh, right. Okay, got you. Yeah.
Small margin of that, but I don't see it as a long-term thing. It's just I suppose it's just a side hustle for us to give the client that risk-free model and give them a bit more, because it makes our deal stack better as well, which is good. And it's keeping that relationship with the client over a longer period, which is what we're about. But also it's creating that residual income that's going to get us to that oxygen level. You know, our goal is to use that income to buy enough properties to get to that, where we can breathe, essentially, you know, where our kind of all our outgoings are kind of covered by the income. So that's just a project, I suppose, part of but it's not actually, you know, something that we want to scale massively. It's just a natural extension, really, of what we do, I suppose.
I love it. It sounds like great growth in the last couple of years. I take it, is that more of what you're going to be doing for the next 3, 4, 5 years in the future? Is trying to scale up your own portfolio to kind of cover overheads, and then
it's funny. I had a call this morning. We have a walk-in where we have we do a little walk, and we both have a chat on the phone, just about how we are and just checking in with each other. And we were kind of discussing what's next. And I think, to be honest, I want to get to the point where the income is covered. Then we don't have to worry about it so much. the core staff are just churning over, keeping that going. We're making a decent profit there. And then me and Jez can kind of step back and focus on what's next. I don't see us doing, I don't see me focusing on sourcing in 5 years. I don't see Jez focusing on sourcing in 5 years. I don't know what it's going to be, but that oxygen level, which is what I'm talking about, allows us to we could spend a whole year on a project and it not work out, and it doesn't matter. We've got, we've not lost anything. You see what I mean? So, whereas if you get funding or you save up 50 grand and put it into something and it doesn't work out, and then you might end up having to go back to work. So it's that kind of, it's getting to that point where it's like, we're covered, and we can just try things out and test things, because I feel like there's definitely something next that we can start. But don't know what it is yet.
Right, guys. Look, I look forward to seeing it and following your journey as well, Daniel. Thanks very much for joining us as well.
Thanks for your time, Daniel. It was great to get a real good insight in your business. Thanks for sharing everything. And I think you've got a great setup there. Love following you online. Keep up the good content.
Thanks.
We'll post your details so where people can follow you, reach out to you on the show notes as well, guys.
Great. Thanks a lot.
All right, mate. Nice one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Guys, as always, thanks very much for your support listening to the podcast. If you can take a couple of minutes to leave a review, it will help the podcast get some more traction. And as always, if you are interested in a little bit of physical meetup, then please come along to one of our events on the first Wednesday of each month in Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh and Glasgow. I'm glad you expand on that, mate, because if people are listening and want to meet up for you physically, I'm glad you expand on that. Let's get physical, baby. Absolutely. The networking events are going down a tree. We're getting phenomenal feedback from them. People are meeting people and forming relationships and doing business. So it's really, really cool to see. And we're going to keep going strong with it. Hope to see you again soon. Bye, guys.